Merci, merci.
Thank you very much. Thank you for being here in this early afternoon. This is another highlight of our festival. After a morning which started off very well, I'm really delighted to welcome here Christian Wikander, who is the new boss of drama for a channel you're all familiar with. You know its name. Well, if you don't know its name, you know its products, SVT in Sweden. And for a few years, Swedish series have been really amazing everybody. For 3 years ago, for our first series festival, we had Real Humans here exclusively. And since that time, these series has been all around the world. It's a combination of intelligence, subtlety, suspense, philosophical questioning, all of this mixed into a wonderful story. And since then, there have been follow-ups, such as The Bridge, which was the remake, 30 Degrees in February. And in the future, we'll be seeing Welcome to Sweden. In the next 30 minutes, Christian is first of all going to give us a panorama, telling us about the environment in which his channel works in Scandinavia and beyond Scandinavia's borders. Without going into the details, I would say this channel started to produce soaps back in the 70s and then gradually evolved and started to produce short and longer dramas covering all genres. The only information I'm going to give you today is that there are 2 evenings where drama is broadcast, 50% of police stories, but Christian's going to go into the details, and those details will be the first half of his presentation, and then we'll be talking about something which is of interest to all of us. Why did they try to create a model for their talents? Why did Christian and his Swedish channel decide to create a recipe for success by analyzing the series that they had made and answering all the questions which arose and finding out what we all want to know: can you create a model for producing talent? So given the programs which they are producing there in Sweden, in SVT, then they might have a very good recipe. So the floor is yours now, Christian. We look forward to listening to you.
Just want to start a watch, I think, so I won't be too long. I love to talk. So, thank you so much for having me. It's an honor, really. I heard so much, especially via my friend Stefan Baron, which I think is here, about how everything is so good to be to visit Fontainebleau. So I'm so happy to be here. And my intentions today is shortly, during half an hour. I tend to talk like 20 minutes, and then we have like 10 minutes left to Q&A. But if you don't understand anything, you can interrupt me whenever you want. So, short presentation of us and how we develop, or at least have ambition to develop. And if there is time, I'm going to show you a short clip what we have coming. SVT the basics, we are public broadcaster. We go past this. I just want to set us in the context of Scandinavia, because I think for some of you, maybe this is an arena you heard a lot about, but this is actually what it is. 4 countries, around, if you sum it up, around 25 million people. And we have a long tradition of co-production within Scandinavia, and it was from the beginning politicians that decided that we should and could co-produce. And except Finland, so Sweden, Norway, and Denmark, we talk a language that we can, at certain degrees, understand each other using our own language. And drama is about 8 producers, and we produce around 50 hours of drama per year, and we have a budget, as you can see, and we work both together with independent producers as well directly with creators. Sometimes we act as producers ourselves, which means around a title per year. But we then do it with freelancers like everyone else. And the vision is that we really would like to be on the European arena, that we go for Swedish original development, and that what we develop shall be relevant for the audience. This is the slot we work with. Am I talking too fast? The slot, Monday and Sunday, that's where we broadcast the serial drama. So 10 times 60. Monday is more feel-good drama, Sunday is more suspense and crime. And then out of that, beyond that, we also produce miniseries, which is around three titles per year. And just recently, we have decided to go for comedy again. We've been producing and broadcasting comedy for many, many years, but it has not been on the slate for 5-7 years, but now it's back. And then we go web drama, and we call it teen because for people between 13 and 19, that's the main target group for the web drama. This is our internal, on the department rule. We always come back to we are nothing without the stories. So that's really on the agenda every day. What is the story here? What is the unique with this? Then we add on everything else, but everything starts with the story. And how do we go about it? Of course, we love to work with the best, and I would say that we do definitely work with the best. But we are a small country, so we need also to work with talent to be the best. And we do that, of course, we do that together with some universities. But I think that we need, in the process itself, the development process, we need to be very open to not so experienced talent. I'll come back to that later. Transparency, I think that's extremely important today. I think that as social media really sets out that we are so very open, we need to share. We also need to share within the development process. And I will give example of that when further down the presentation. SVT comes from a tradition of being a huge producer. We had like 4 film crews, we have all the resources, and now we have none of that left. But with that tradition also came that we were not especially open. We had development on our own, we had production on our own, and so we need to work with this a lot and to be very clear and sharp about what we are looking for and how we go about it is part of that strategy, part of moving into the future, leaving that old tradition behind. And which also means that we need to be open with who decides how are decisions taken and who makes a decision, and communicate the process. And what we did was that we meet weekly and we talk about what we have in pipeline and new projects coming in and new suggestions coming in. We spent 2 hours together with Karin. Karin is a graphic designer, and we set out for a 2-hour journey to talk us through the process itself, how to go from the white paper to the presentation, because everything after presentation is very, very well defined, and we know a lot about that. But this was from the white paper to presentation. And she started to draw on everything that we talked about in the room. And this is just a small amount of the pictures she came down with. And each picture is something that we talked about, what kind of needs and meetings and questions and transparency do we need to work with to reach a presentation. And so, I'm going to draw for you. Commissioning editor, that's where the money is, right? And we have one responsible for drama. And here is the drama department. Do you see this? Can you see? Yeah? Okay, great. Thank you for the answer. Commissioning editor, right? Here's the money. So they send out the strategy. The strategy I show you about Monday, Sunday, telling Feel Good Monday and so. Okay, so we start to develop. And here is the world of ideas, creators, independents, producers, and everything. We both send out questions as well as bring in ideas, okay? And we have money to develop on our own towards that strategy, right? So, I don't know the English word. Stefan, do you know the English word for tratt? When you pour, if you write this, you pour in water. Funnel, yeah. So it's like a big funnel, right? So a lot of ideas here, and we have different phases, 1, 2, 3, and in the first phase we focus a lot on the program, what we call the program description. And the program description is theme, premise, character, arena. And what is the difference between theme and premise? Because I think we use that word a lot. And I'm not so sure about it, but in my interpretation of that word, premise, is the short description of the series. So if we talk about The Bridge, we would say the police find a dead body on the bridge. When they moved the body, they found out that it's actually 2 bodies. The top is belonging to a dead politician from Denmark. The bottom is belonging to a dead prostitute from Sweden. That sets off a joint investigation of the police between Sweden and Denmark. That's the premise for The Bridge. The theme is the emotion. That is never written out. It's a story about revenge. The scenes never, no character in the series never talk about the theme, but the audience maybe sometimes could say, it's a story about revenge. That's the difference between the theme and the premise, and we need to have the answer to both the theme and the premise, and of course characters and arena. So that's phase 1. And then phase 2, we have what we call the concept, which is some kind of skeleton of the story, very, very basic, in order to take the whole story from the beginning to the end. And then we have the scripts. And we are quite unwilling to go to the next phase before we have the answers in this phase before. Okay. So this is a picture that we draw together that day, or ended up with that kind of picture. Sorry. And Do you know what crux moves is? Anyone doing mountaineering, climbing hills? If you are a climber for mountains, you know what a crux move is, because a crux move is that very, very odd move you need to do in order to pass that extra, very, very difficult passage on the mountain wall. That's a crux move. And when looking into organization, one has found out that organizations that actually are good at crux moves in order to meet new challenges, they will survive. So I think this is challenging. The diary could have been mine, actually, because I wrote diary when I was between 10 and 12. And there were no diaries for guys. It was only diaries for girls. So mine was actually pink. Anyway, but today, we are very transparent. I mean, the diaries today are on the internet. We are very open with the most private things. Most of us are. Not everyone, but most of us are. That's a challenge. And so I come back to this, that transparency is extremely essential. And I mean, standing here today maybe is some kind of transparency. At least for SVT's tradition, it's transparent. What we do today is that we invite guests into our development meetings, guests that actually not are connected to that certain development. It could be an audience, a representative for an audience. It could be a director. It could be the people working in the entertainment department. It could be anyone. Invite them into the room, explain, pitch the idea, and have their input. It does not mean that they are in decision position. Just to be open, to have their ideas, their perspective, and I'm certain, I promise you, it will make the idea even better. To be open on Twitter for SVT Drama, we try to act like the good guy or good girl that comes with suggestion about don't miss that drama. And that it doesn't have to be dramas that we are making. So we try to be a character for the audience. The department tries to work as a host, especially towards writers, because writers are the lonely people in that empty room, sitting on their own writing. So we try to create a network among writers. And today I think we have over 250 on the send mail list when we do the invitation. And it comes around 150, 170 people to hear us talk about what we are looking for, but also networking amongst themselves. And the last one is not about transparent, but what we during that process of creating pictures, we also have a more common language. What time is it? Oh. Okay, we have made a digital strategy. Digital also is about 1,000 different ways of interpreting the word digital. For me, it's synonym to network. So network strategy, and this is all about audience. How do we network with the audience? And these are the 4 steps. And the last one is to remind us that this is not about that the audience shall tell us what they want to see. But we have to know as much as we can about the audience, and we need to invite them in order to make them even more loyal, more engaged in what we are producing. Locality. Jerome? Yeah. It worked. That's the word.
I think there's both fusion and tension between the local and the global, and I call it the locality, that we still live in places, obviously, but we view them from the perspective of elsewhere. We think about how what we do compares to the way people behave in other places, and we interact with people in other locations, and I think that we imagine ourselves in very different ways. So we don't look to the local anymore as the only place to say, I'm a member.
We don't have so much time. Was it the flag? Jerome? Yeah. Anyway, locality. Have you heard about the Danish series Borgen? Yeah. I promise you that when they developed that, they had no idea that it could work outside Denmark. No, neither had I. But the reason to it is that the theme behind the story is what price has a woman to pay in order to make a career. That's the universal theme. And that's an example of locality. And that's why we all can make stories, fly, and travel all over the world, no matter if we come from Iceland, Sweden, France, Israel, whatever. This is the reason, I think. A reminder for myself, if I had 10 million euros to buy this fantastic piece of land facing the Mediterranean and to build this house, I would be very, very precise before saying go ahead. And that's the normal price of a drama series. But it seems like we don't handle that in the same way. But I think we should, and I think we need to. So this is what happens then. Do you know all this? The last point, evaluation, that goes into my drawing. We evaluate everything that we broadcast back to development. What have we learned? Did it deliver what we thought? Okay, a sneak preview before questions. Shall we run the clip? Before running the clip, this is jordskott, and it will not, as planned, be translated, as for now at least. It's a 10 times 60. It's Nordic crime meets mystery. And we're going to broadcast this spring next year. And this is not a trailer. This is a couple of scenes, I would say. It's 2.5 minutes long. Just to give you a taste of it. And it's, of course, offline, not sound work, it all. This is really rough stuff. Okay?
Någon har tagit Anton för att pressa Thomas på pengar. Enda möjligheten.
Ja, det är en av möjligheterna som vi prövar. Om någon tagit honom borde vi ha hört från kidnapparna för länge sedan, eller hur?
Ja, nu har jag väntat här hela natten. Hur mår flickan?
Hon är fortfarande medvetslös, hon är undernärd, men annars är hennes värden stabila.
Får jag gå in till henne?
Hon ligger under observation och får inte ta emot besök.
När får jag träffa henne då?
Du får återkomma.
Merci beaucoup, Christian. Quelques questions dans la salle. Avant, moi j'ai remarqué trois choses.
I get the feeling you spend a lot of time defining the genre of the film you're going to make before you actually move into an active phase. Does that mean, for example, if you've got a really good story, but it doesn't quite match your objectives, perhaps it wasn't a police story, will you just let that opportunity go by, or will you try and convert it into the genre you're looking for?
No. The answer is really no to both things. That we would never try to force anything into a genre, but I think that in order to have the genre on the table when you discuss something, you can define it, or you can define that this is actually something else, or this is a mixture, but never the other way around. Never force a genre on it. No.
Une seconde question avant de passer la parole à la
salle. A second question before the questions go out to the floor. When you invented the term glocality, did you get the feeling that this way the formats are being adapted, you buy a format and adapt it to a different format in a different country to match that country? Does that correspond to a need which is a personal thing, or is it more global?
I think that when it comes to traveling of formats, an example for me, not taking the bridge or Real Human, I would say that Homeland, for instance, I mean it's very extremely locally, where if you compared the Australian Pastillion original format with the American format, so in that sense you will always have that kind of glasses when you develop a format to a new local market. But in locality, for me, is that we, as persons now, is so borderless how we collect information, how we are inspired, and I think in that sense we share much more than the things we not share. We have so much in common, and that of course affects the storytelling, but it also a lot of possibilities in that concerning drama.
Merci. Quelques questions dans la salle.
On
va passer quelques minutes. Je vous propose
from
5-10 minutes.
The audience, 5-10 minutes, depending on how curious you all are. Microphone out to the room.
Est-ce que vous pouvez revenir un peu plus
Could you
précisément
give a
sur
few more
le
details
sujet
about
et le thème?
the subject and the theme?
Très intéressant.
It was very interesting.
Parfois, c'est des questions que
And these
on se
are
pose pas
questions
assez.
which
Vous
we
pouvez nous
don't
préciser
give
un peu
enough
comment on
attention
travaille
to.
là-dessus?
Can you
Ce serait
just
formidable. Merci.
tell us how you work on that, please?
The question was about the premise and the theme, the way we work with it is that we spend quite a lot of time in defining the premise. I mean, the elevator pitch, the short description of the story, and the thing is that if you can't define that, then you shouldn't move on. You should stay at what I call the phase one then, but whatever. You shouldn't move on too fast. And I think when a project doesn't work, audience-wise, you can often find the reason back there. Because if you don't have that very clear for yourself, what is the story I actually want to tell here? And what is the theme? What is the emotion I would like the audience to feel, and maybe label it afterwards? Then the project will be very weak. But the way we go about it, ask, give notes, ask again. And I'm sure that a lot of writers, or at least some, hate us. It takes it during that process, and we don't try to solve it for the writer. because it's the writer's story. But try to ask the questions in that way to make the writer make decisions. Because often when a premise doesn't work, it's because it's too broad. So maybe I asked the question for you.
Une dernière question, madame,
A
par
final
exemple.
question. There's a lady over there.
Désolé, mais
Hello.
How do you work with writers?
Could you?
Est-ce que les auteurs, par exemple, sont présents dans cette série?
Are writers present during the first phase when you're thinking about ideas? Do you already have the writers who are working with you thinking about the project which you're going to develop? Or do you first of all have your ideas and then you get writers to develop them out of the house?
I would say that 99 out of 100, this is carried in by the writer or the independent producer. When we initiate, it's maybe more out of we lack that kind of story. We never make up the program description. That's something that really has to be carried in by the writer, I would say. It has to be. So therefore, they are very present during the whole development phase, the one I've drawn. They are. I mean, it's their story.
okay. The last one. Short question, short answer.
Meaning,
Thank you. It's a question about the creative universe on the open end of the funnel. Do you take projects from other countries besides the Scandinavian countries? And what's your position about co-productions or commissioning stuff from other localities?
Hard one to answer shortly, but I will try. I mean, our mission is to tell the Swedish stories, but that doesn't mean the story can't be carried in by a writer from France, but it has to be relevant for our audience. So in that sense, we are very open. And co-production wise, I mean, we can't survive without co-productions. To keep up this high level of production value today, we have to co-produce.
So do you have a separate process for projects that come from other?
No, I think you will meet the same questions. You will meet in the same phases. But then again, I mean, if you are that established and extremely gifted and experienced writer, you will probably pass. You will probably answer all the phases directly because you know it.
Merci, Christian.